a second.
Okay.
Alrighty, so we are together for another episode, I guess I want to call it, of StrainedParadox with Dr. Toni. And the point of this is to bring communities together to talk about things that are relevant to American culture generally, but specifically to communities of color. And I know so many experts and so many wise people that are people of color that I wanted to also have a platform to spotlight them so that we can talk about issues that might be discussed by experts that are white or older or whatever. But I wanted to mix it up and give us a chance to untangle illogical logic and tackle unjust justice. So today we have someone that I can't tell you how much I admire, appreciate, respect. Barron was, I'm not sure if you still have, but Together as One, that's when I met him when he had that organization. And when I say there's certain people that invest in the community, and then there's other people that invest in people that are in the community. And I feel as though Barron is one of those people that invest in people. He invests time, resources, effort, and most of all, knowledge into the community. So I'm really glad to share him with you today. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is generational wealth and talking about what it's like to build generational wealth, and especially for communities that might not really be focused on wealth right now. And you might be trying to focus on just getting the money you need to eat today. So there are some real things that you can do to build generational wealth and talk about that knowledge. So Barron, I'll allow you to also introduce yourself.
Well, first, I just want to say thank you for that the wonderful introduction, Dr. Toni. You are always just somebody that's been about your business and moving and shaking and always striving for more. So, a lot of a lot of love to you for that. But I am a planner for a financial advisor for Northwestern Mutual. Been doing it with them for about 3 years, but I did send it back a while ago in this career. As you mentioned, I am a lover of Black culture in general. I'll never be apologize for that. But I think as we get as we move into this next age, it's important that we all understand each other. So African American people understand, white people understand, Spanish people, and I just want to share our. I think we have something good to share, but still love each and every person I come across. So that's me in a nutshell.
Right. So um, first of all, I'm going to put up your email and all of that so that people can be able to contact you. And let's just dig in. I think a lot of people talk about generational wealth and have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
Like, I hear the term a lot. I'm trying to build generational wealth. And so can you just kind of tell our audience what is generational wealth?
So to me, generational wealth is just thinking about leaving something to not just. I mean, you live your own current lifestyle, and you have money coming in and things like that. But I want to make sure just think about my own personal family, that my daughter, my stepdaughter, has a better step up than I did when I started. So when I talk about generational wealth, I just talk about leaving something for not just her, but my grandkids, even my great great grandkids. That's not something a lot of us were taught, really. A lot of us are just first generation savers, and we're just trying to make it through the day, like you said, to eat. Um, but I think it's really important for us, especially as we're in this situation where we're experiencing all this discrimination and racism and things like that, for us to build our own platforms and build our own wealth. And that way, when it comes down to we can have more power when we can harness some of our own wealth.
Right. So just to define some terms too, the difference between income and wealth. Income is what you earn, right? So you can make $1 million a year as income, but that does not necessarily mean you're wealthy unless you know what to do with that income. And you can invest it, use it to multiply. Wealth is something that builds and grows. It can be passed on from generation to generation. Income is what you're basically just, it's what you make for the work that you did. So when we're discussing building generational wealth, we're not talking about how much you make. You can build generational wealth regardless of your income just by starting somewhere.
Yeah, it's funny. My wife and I, we were reading a book with with our stepdaughter. I believe it's called Starting Point. I can't remember who wrote it. And the definition of wealth is, if your income were to stop for today, how long could you survive?
Right.
If that's not 7 to 10 years, then you're not wealthy yet. So that's what we're trying. That's what we're trying to build. If especially pandemic. You saw the pandemic. There's some people who checks got cut off. They were stuck. We're trying to make sure that people are okay, not in just today's age, but also make sure that your daughter, so your children and things are okay as well. So we want some money to put aside to start to actually work for you, as opposed to you having to work for it.
So where do they start?
So, my simple formula or philosophy on planning is just very simple, and everybody can kind of just, think about it this way. You have income that comes in, whether it's through your job, whether you have real estate, whether you have, whatever business you have, and then you have a minimal level of expenses that you need to just survive. So your necessary expenses. You subtract that from your income, and it leaves you with a disposable income. That disposable income is the key to financial planning, and what you do with that is going to determine your wealth later on. So I typically say there's about 4 areas that money in. One is protecting your income. That's your biggest asset, and your health and your income is your biggest asset. If something happens to you tomorrow, everything that you have planned, all your dreams and goals are based on your income coming in. So one, I suggest people put some money aside to protect that income, whether that's disability insurance, term insurance, life insurance, whether it is just putting some money aside in an emergency fund. I think that's where you want to start. But after that, you of course you want to have some money for your lifestyle. You want to put some money aside that's going to start to work for you. And then you also want to put some money aside and start thinking about putting some money aside that's going to go beyond you. So that figuring out that disposable income is probably the most important thing that you can do. Do a budget and figure that part out.
Yeah, and one of the things I've dealt with clients from, zero income all the way up to multi-million dollars, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen some of the same issues of not understanding that expendable income is after you pay your necessities, not after you do everything you want to do and what's left. So, the money that you might spend getting your nails done or at the barbershop is part of your expendable income. So that point, you're making a decision how you want to spend money rather than save it.
Exactly.
So, there are certain things, that we might have as needs in our lives that are really intense ones. And I think that's some of the issues that we have, especially in the Black community. I can't speak for other communities, but sometimes not just kind of assessing, okay, I need a new bag, or I need a new car, or I need this. Okay, what level is that really a need? You need a vehicle to get to work, but do you really need the car that you're getting? And how will it impact your expendable income? Now, another question I have for you, as far as where to start, is what if the person is one of those people that's frugal and doing what they're supposed to do? They have the income that they need to take care of what they have to take care of, but they don't really have much in expendable income. What are some things that they might be able to do, because they need to get to the point of starting somewhere? So before we get into all the other stuff, I want to talk to those that might need to get to that point? What are some things that they can do to just slice off a little bit to put something aside?
Yeah, you know, the funny thing is that the older you get, the harder it is to kind of adjust to that. But you know, as we teach our stepdaughter, my stepdaughter, and as I try and teach my clients, even I'm having to do this myself. It's paying yourself first. You know, a lot of times we adjust our savings to our lifestyle as opposed to adjusting our lifestyle to our savings. So if we get $100 and we take 25 off the top, then we got to figure out how to live off that 75. And that 25% or that whatever that money is that we take off of the top, it has to be a discipline. It has to be something that we focus on doing every single time. So like I said, as we teach our kids, when we give them a dime, save a dime. And that has to be what you do through life. And that dime you use to put to work for you. There's a term I like to talk about people when I ask them about how much they're saving. You know, they might give me some money, and then I say, well, let me clarify. I'm not asking you what your deferred saving is. So if you're just saving it to spend it on something later on, that's not really saving.
Right.
I'm talking about what are you saving that's going to work for you, so at some point you don't have to work for it.
Right.
So, you know, at the question that you asked me, uh, uh, you know, if you're older and like you've already started your lifestyle, it doesn't have to be overnight. It may just start off with saving 1% first,
Right.
maybe 2%, but you just got to start in a habit of starting to do that, and then adjusting your lifestyle to kind of make sure that you can save first. So that would be the biggest thing I say, and it may make some hard decisions. You may have to cut off that cable or get to streaming, or you may have to
Oh,
give
let's
this a
not
try.
get ridiculous here.
I get Netflix.
Now
Other than
you're
that,
just getting crazy. No, I'm one of those people that love movies. So I've had to make that choice at times, but it's one of the last things I get rid of. But that is one of the choices that you have to make. Now, one thing I suggest to people is usually saving only hurts the first week, right,
Mhm.
out of your paycheck because you're used to spending a certain amount. So I suggest they use their direct deposit to put it into an account of a bank that is not their normal bank. So either a credit union or a different bank. It should not have an ATM card attached to it. It's something where basically the small amount, if you don't have like, a large amount of income or a large expendable income that you have left over, just a small amount. It could be $5 a pay. It could be $25, $50. If you can afford 200, 300, that's fine too. But just something that gets automatically taken out, no different than your taxes. I even tell people if you pay tithes and offering, have that in a separate account as well, not to go
Mhm.
into your savings, because the point is you don't want to dip into that. But
Yeah.
really having that account completely set aside, almost to the point that you forget about it, similar to what you have with your 401k. You don't always think about what's in your 401k until you have a rainy day and you're like, wait a minute, I have an emergency. I wonder what's there. Now, of course, not suggesting you take out of it, but that's the time when you think about it. Your
Mhm.
savings account, I tell people, should be similar. It should be something that's so set aside that you almost forget about. And that's why most banks, if you withdraw out of your savings more than 6 times in a month, more than two
Mhm.
months or something like that in a row, then they switch it over to a checking because that's not what it's for.
Yeah. You know, it's funny when you said an emergency fund. You know, one of the things I ask my clients to do is to set parameters about what you can use your emergency fund for.
Yeah.
Um, you know, so you know the common knowledge is you're supposed to get 3 to 6 months of savings into an account that you can use for emergencies. But a lot of times those emergencies end up being an emergency steak dinner or emergency out with the wife or the husband or whatever. That should really be set some parameters around it, what a true emergency is. And I define a true emergency as anything that keeps you from making more income. So if my car breaks down and I need to fix my car because I need to get to work, that's an emergency. Health wise, my wife or I'm or anybody else is sick, that's an emergency. But anything else is you need to. That's what that other money that you don't have going into that goal funding account should be used for. So set some parameters around your using your emergency fund.
That's really good. And I think that would help some marriages too. One of the things I do is divorce mediation and and some relationship coaching. And one of the things it's always, there are different definitions of what an emergency is. One person thinks an emergency is the kid's birthday party, and another thinks it's medical bills. Well, that's a huge gap that, you need to talk about to see, make sure that some of those terms are defined.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a big thing is just when couples get together talking about how they view money, their relationship with money. It's tough, and it's not easy. I mean, me and my wife still have conversations around, money and how we think about it and how we relate to it. So that's a really important conversation, probably before you even get married, is just understanding what that looks like for each of you. Because if we wait till that emergency happens and you want to take it out and she doesn't, or she wants to take it out and you don't, that's when the friction really starts. And yeah.
Right. And like you said, these are conversations that have even the conversation of how you're going to build that generational wealth should be had in advance, because if one person is like, I'm just trying to save money to go on vacations and enjoy life, and the other is saying, I want to pass it down from generation to generation, um, you know, you need to figure that out. Because one thing I'm seeing, it seems like the only thing right now that I'm seeing really passed down in a lot of Black families particular is generational debt. Like,
Yeah.
it's, there's no real discussions. And my mom is definitely on point, and I do appreciate this, but there's no real discussions on life insurance and putting money aside, and even life insurance for the kids. My mother, when I had my kids, and she's the grandma, she said one of the first things she said is, I got insurance policy. I was like, you expect my kids to die? I'm not that bad of a mother. Like, they're gonna
Yeah.
live. But she said no, because you never know what happens. And those are the discussions that we need to have. You
You know,
said,
I want to harp on that a little bit. A lot of us are first generation savers and first generation, all that stuff. And one of the things I've been, my own personal protest march is talking about getting insurance for kids. And I'll just keep it brief. It's usually like a 15-minute conversation, but I'm just going to keep it real brief. We're not really thinking about, I have insurance for my daughter, and it's not for something just in case something happens to her. I mean, we do have it just in case something does, but at some point she's going to have a family, and that family is going to be dependent on her. So we all know about insurance. The earlier you get it and the healthier you are, the cheaper it is, and the easier it is to get. So why not set your kids up with something that, so when they get to that point and somebody like me can approach them and say, oh, I already got insurance for that. The second reason, and I'm not going to get into the whole term versus whole life thing, but the second reason to do that through whole life insurance is because now you give them some cash value to leverage throughout life, but also you almost guarantee that you're going to leave some money for your grandkids and your great great grandkids. And if we can teach our kids to do the exact same thing when they have their kids, now we've changed our entire bloodline. Now each generation gets wealthier and wealthier and wealthier. So that's just one of the things I've been talking about. That's my own personal march. I'm not out here with a Black Lives Matter T-shirt, but this is my own personal protest.
well, it's important. It's so important. And yeah, term life versus whole life. There are some tax issues. There's some other things that you should think about. And I definitely suggest whole life insurance whenever possible. And like you said, the earlier the better, and one of those reasons too is having pre-existing conditions will change that as well. So as your children get older, you start to do more and more testing and different things like that. So you might find out that your child has some type of minor disability or major or mental health issue, or now they're doing a lot of genetic testing. So there might be some genetic issues that might arise later. Well, the insurance companies a lot of times have access to all of those things, and especially if it's one that does the whole check, because some of them get all in your business. But but when you deal with this, so the earlier the better for your kids, and you're really setting them up so that they are protected. You're protected. It's not just wait until they're older, and then right now it seems like, and I know this isn't what we were originally talking about, but it seems like it's the insurance policy that we have as a Black family is wait until somebody passes away and then ask everybody what they can chip in. And unfortunately, then we then we assess, well, how much are they loved by the quality of who chips in. And that's not insurance, that's not protection.
Yeah.
So what else can we do for our kids to teach them about wealth? And I frame that with, I'm a single mother, and I had two children. I have two sons that had some disabilities growing up. So I focused more on income and changing things so that I can be what they need in the present. So one of the things that I also did with them as far as teaching them and establishing generational wealth was starting with knowledge, right? In other words, telling them, listen, this is what mom's doing. It doesn't have to be do what I do. In this case, it's I'm doing this because I'm trying to provide a life for you, but this is the right way to do it. If I had done this at your age, I would not have to do this today. And really showing them that, hey, because I didn't save up for your college, what I did was I got a PhD so that you could go to school at the college I work at for free. So I had to maneuver things that would not have had to happen had I focused on that when they were early. So to help other parents avoid that, what are some things that they can do to start out that conversation and get their children focused on that?
Yeah, so I love that. The education piece is the most important. So I think we want to teach them to do things differently than we did. And I'm a financial advisor, and even me, my past few years before that, I didn't even do the things the right way. So it's about sitting down with our kids and kicking down and showing them mistakes that we made early, so that they don't have those same mistakes. So one of the things, again, like we do when I do with my stepdaughter, and it was inspired by she had her doing it already. But whenever you get money, just make sure that they know to put at least 10% aside. Now we do 20, some other people do 15, doesn't matter. That part's not the most important part. But getting them to systematically put money aside every single time they get it, to show them that if they get $10 and they put one for savings, they still have $9 that they can just enjoy life with. And once that money is saved, you can enjoy the rest of your life. So I think that's the biggest thing that you can do. And then have them sit down with you at the budget table. Have them go through your budget with you and understand why they can't get those sneakers this time, or see, what goes into making a budget. So seeing what the rent or mortgage is, seeing what the utilities are, seeing what school costs. Get them involved with, and it's funny, it's around here somewhere. I just bought a book, and then we're about to give it to my daughter, the Financial Aid Handbook.
Oh,
and
yes. Yeah.
It's written to the students in mind, but let them know, what college looks like, what expenses look like, what it's going to do for the family, and get them involved in these conversations early so they can make better decisions. I went to Syracuse University, had a fantastic experience, had a wonderful experience. But if I had learned early, I may do it a little bit different. And speaking because, Syracuse was an expensive school. Now you got to pay off loans. I may have been able to get a great experience from going to community college for the first 2 years and then going to college. So have those conversations early so they understand the impact of their decisions early and what's going to happen the rest of their life. So that would be my biggest thing.
That's so important. And I had to reschedule it, but I'm gonna have Scholar Shop, the founder of Scholar Shop Mom on, and she's gonna talk about financial aid and scholarships and all of those things. Again, trying to help establish something so that they don't start their adult lives with debt. A lot of times the first major thing they sign is the loan agreement. And that's not what we want for our kids. I know I learned it because I went to college late. I was already had my kids divorced in my 20s when I finally started college, but I realized immediately, okay, if it's this amount per year, I can fit a whole lot of credits in that year. Like they allow up to 18 credits. I don't have to do the minimum 12. So I eased in those extra classes. I took, reduced some rate summer classes, all of these different things to reduce that amount. Then for my PhD, I got scholarships, fellowships, and everything else. So these are some of the things we can do. Now with my children, you were talking about budget. I mean, probably annoyingly so, those that, you don't want a parent that's an accountant. That's just what you don't want. But I sat down with them and I would show my budget. And when they got me upset, I literally wrote out how much it cost me to take care of them. I gave them each. This is how much I pay per month to take care of you. And this is why when you ask for something, I have to say no. It's not because I'm being mean. Well, sometimes, but sometimes it's just because it doesn't exist. Like the money is not there. And I had them help me, even though I was very capable of making some of these decisions, I had them help me make the decisions. You want a new wardrobe. Okay. Do you want a lot of inexpensive things? Or do you want a couple of signature pieces? Or this is the budget. How do we want to stretch it? Did you look for promo codes? Did you look at multiple stores? Or did you shop around? Just even having that discussion with them, of having them be involved in the decisions that pertain to them. Showing them the electric bill. It's not enough to yell and say, you know how much it costs? No, they don't know. They have no
idea.
Basis for it. They just know that when they flip the switch, light comes on and they can do whatever they want in that light. Yeah, so really having a conversation about what rent is, what mortgage is, what's the difference, like, really helping them understand. And I know one thing with me, and my mother did this with me, but I know with my children, it made no a lot easier. But sometimes they actually came to me and said, Mom, I was going to ask you for this, but I remember you said you had to pay the car note this week. And you don't know, like you might know, but the warmth that comes over when you're like, I didn't have to say, like, they actually got it this time. They might not get it next time, but this time they got it. So what are some other knowledge-based things now that we've given them some knowledge? We're starting to put away some money from our expendable income. We're starting to really go toward generational wealth. What are some tools that, whether it be 401k or whatever, what are some, because I honestly, in this area, I'm about as dumb as everybody else. What are some of the tools that someone can use to actually start building? What are some of the instruments?
So that's a lot. I mean, it depends on everybody's situation, but I would say, the first step in, again, planning is making sure you protect your income. So your income is your biggest asset. So you want to put some money aside to protect your income. But from the second thing you want to do is really understand what your benefits are through work. So you can get a lot of stuff through work. So, whether it's disability insurance or life insurance or your retirement, really understand what that means and how it works. Your 401k, I tell people off the rip, if your 401k is matching, put at least up to the match into your 401k. That is free money that you can possibly get. Some people are like, well, I'm not sure how long I'm going to work there. Who cares? If you happen to be there for 3 years or 4 years, once you get that money, to get that money, but what's off. But that's free money that you're giving away. I'd also say for folks who, in your last week's, I can't remember the young man's name from last week's show, talking about using the Roth IRA as a way to save as well. So if you're making under a certain amount of income, the government will allow you to put some money in after tax but it will grow. It will grow tax free. So when you get to retirement, you could take that money out without the taxes. Now that's important because as we've all seen recently, the government has been printing money left and right. We're at about probably a $3 to $4 trillion tax deficit. At some point, the government is going to have to recoup that money. And historically, we're at a low tax rate, but tax rates have been as high as 60, 70, 75% in recent times. I mean, in the 40s, 50s, 60s. It's not unreasonable to think that we might end up going back to that. So if all your money is in one bucket of pre-tax money and you're waiting to your retirement, thinking that you're going to be spending less doesn't even matter because the government may be charging you more for that money later on. So start talking about thinking about money in pre-tax versus post-tax. I would say the most important thing about choosing investments, a lot of us want to go out there and do stock, individual stock and things like that because that's the end thing to do. I just think that stick to what you know. If you're going to do it, stick to what you know. Don't rely on somebody telling you, yo, Johnson Johnson's going to do this, blah, blah, blah. If you're in pharmaceuticals, then invest in some of that stuff. If you're in, I don't know, if your kids love gaming, have them research gaming and do that. But for the most part, let the professionals do it. I meet with a lot of doctors. You're a doctor. Do the doctor stuff. That's your home run. That's you going to make your millions off of that. And we just focus on helping you keep some of that. Let the professionals worry about making that wealth for you. If you're an accountant, do that. If you're an athlete, do that, and become good at that. And that's your home, what I call your home run bucket. That's when you're going to become rich. Let some professionals help you stay wealthy.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a control thing that I see a lot. People, they have their money and they don't want to let go of it. I want to control how it's earned. And if you don't understand how the economy works on a deeper level, if you don't understand the history of stocks, if you don't understand market volatility and all of these different factors, because there are certain markets that are, or stocks that are impacted by various markets and time of year and time of day even, and international. There's so much that goes into the decision making.
Who's got time for that?
Yeah, it really, there are people that turn it into their full-time job and they do a great, kind of a great job with it as far as learning. But if you're starting out, what I suggest is learn from the people, ask questions to the people that you've entrusted to grow your money.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? Why did you transfer this? Why did you sell that? Why did you buy that? Not to be annoying to them. You don't want to, everything that's done, you don't need to pick up the phone and call or send an email, but just understand what's going on with your money. One of the things I also suggest too is when tax returns. What people don't realize is technically, other than refundable credits, technically you're not supposed to get money back. So if with things looking like that, I agree with you that the tax rates have to go up. There no matter who's going to be president next, hopefully somebody different, but no matter who's going to be president next, we're going to have to deal with some type of tax increase, and I almost feel bad for them because whoever does it is going to have to do that. Now, with that said, when you fill out your forms for a tax deduction, there's calculations that those forms have. The point is not to just bring home as much as you can, is to keep your tax liability low. So if you're paying too much if you're paying too much in taxes out of your paycheck, that's why you're getting a refund. So that means you lose the use of that money. And in essence, you're giving it to the state and federal government to earn interest on when you could have earned interest on that money yourself.
Absolutely.
The second thing is when you do get a refundable income, and I know I'm guilty of this, other people are guilty of this, try not to go shopping or to go on that vacation you've always wanted. If you do get a refundable credit and that's money you have, a couple thousand coming back to you, put it away. You weren't going to have the money anyway. You didn't even know you were going to get that money back 2 weeks ago when you filled out the form.
Mm-hmm.
Put that money in a savings plan. Go to someone like Barron and ask them, hey, what do I do with this? And
Yeah.
I'm sure he will have a few suggestions.
You know,
So, what are some ideas you have?
I think more importantly than that is just have a process for it. So I mean, a lot of times we don't put purpose behind our money. We just when we get to it, we figure it out then, as opposed to, okay, I know every year I get tax money back, so I'm going to put a process in place now that I know that when I get my tax money back, 50% is going to savings, 25% is going to my kids for whatever, and I'm going to use this other 25% to have a ball. If you set that process up ahead of time and you stick to that process, stick to that discipline, take that 25% and have a ball. But at least you know that 50% of that is going into some kind of savings and things like that. So I think that's super important. Also, when you're just thinking about retirement and getting to what's called Financial Independence Day, which is a day you don't have to work for money anymore.
Right.
The biggest thing that you really want to start to understand is market volatility. So, in talking about the stock market going up and down, and understanding tax efficiency, and just a little bit of an analogy for understanding the stock market. Over time, the stock market is probably the best place to put your money, but it's a long-term investment. So, think if you're standing still and you have a yo-yo, and the yo-yo is going up and down. That yo-yo represents the stock market in the short term. Step on an escalator and keep doing that same motion. Although in the short term it's going up and down, over time it continues to go up and up and up. So I think there's a stat out there that over 15 years, the stock market has never come back with a negative return. I think it's 10 years, it's been like 10% times come back with a negative return, whatever. So the stock market may be volatile, but over the long term is less risky, especially when you're thinking about inflation. So think about the price of a stamp back in 1980. It might have been 21 cents. Now it's 50 something cents. You want to at least have your money outpacing inflation. So I said a lot right there. I mean, let me slow down. I'm sorry.
Well, I got you. I first of all, I just want to say your escalator analogy is amazing. I'm going to steal that.
I got that from my man Glenn at my office. My man Glenn at my office taught me that.
Tell Glenn I said thank you. But because I'm going to use that because it gives a great visual about what's going on. And it gives people a great way of being patient with it. You know, when you're on an escalator, you have that urge because they're stairs. So you have that urge to say, I want to climb it. I want to make it go faster. I want to, or why isn't it moving fast enough? You're fighting some emotions, but if you just focus on the fact that in the end you will get to where you want to get to and it will be a higher place than where you started, then that's what you need to focus on. And as far as the stocks and all of that, I think right now, I think there's some fear because people watch the daily numbers, and fear and mistrust, and especially communities of color, that wait, I don't want to give my money to the system, or the government's going to control it, or if I'm boycotting a certain organization, what do I do with my stocks? Like, there's so much mistrust that goes on. And we need to talk about the transfer of generational wealth, but how can someone kind of and deal with some of those fears and focus on the fact that long term, that I'm trying to get somewhere. That's why I'm doing it.
Yeah. So again, as I mentioned before, you want to have a developer's philosophy around all of this stuff. You don't want to, you want to take the emotion out of it. So, for instance, a few months ago, when the stock market just tanked out, if you sold your stock then, you missed the next 3 months of the uptick. But if you knew that your money was in it for retirement, so if you were 30, you knew your money was in it for retirement, who cares what the stock market does in the short term? So develop a philosophy around how you use money and the purpose of your money. That'll help you take the emotion out of it. As far as the mistrust, and I was, oddly enough, I was thinking about this today. It U.S. It's a game. Any place you go, they're going to have their own set of rules. They're going to have their own games. Whether you go to Ghana, whether you go to Brazil, whether you go here or there, there's going to be rules to the game. Learn the game and take advantage of it. If we're going to be here, we might as well use it. Other folks are using it. Um, so I think we should, like I said, learn the game and just take the mistrust out of it and just take advantage of what we have here in the U.S.
So I thank you for that. So I know we said we're going to talk about transfer wealth, but I want to ask another question real quick. And we posted very similarly about our feelings toward giving circles and get just seems to be more prominent right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm a forensic accountant, fraud examiner, so I see the negative side of it. And I see the potential that exists for pyramid schemes, for Ponzi schemes, and just plain out misuse and misappropriation of the funds. But in the same token, I do see the benefit for a close knit family.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have a few family members that are trying to build towards something, that might be a good tool. If it's closed and no one else is allowed to be a part of it. But there's so many issues. And I get slapped around metaphorically for saying don't do it. But what are your thoughts? What are you seeing, feeling, whatever on it?
So I think there's two things that we have to talk about. So there's the actual traditional susu that a lot of cultures have used forever. And it's really just a forced way of saving to have somebody hold you accountable. So, just to describe the quick how it works is a susu is you get 10 people every week, they bring $50, $100 or whatever, and they give it to one person. And that rotates throughout a 10-week cycle, let's say. So you figure out which week you're going to get your money and you just get paid. So you get a lump sum of money at that same time. So it's just forcing you to save money. As long as you have people who you trust to do it, no problem at all. A lot of people I know have done it, especially in the West Indian cultures, and they use it as a way to saving, especially if you can't save on your own and you need some people to hold you accountable for giving this money every month or every week or so forth. So that's a traditional susu. There's a new thing that's happening now, and it typically happens a lot when we talk about, community and community wealth and community building. And I think it's called a flowered susu or something like that. And in its essence, it's a pyramid. Um, the the way that it's being presented now is that it's you gifting money to people, and you have a like-minded amount of people. And of course, in the short term, the earlier you get in, the better it can work for you. But at some point, just because of the nature of the structure of it, it has to exponentially grow for everybody to continue to get paid. At some point, that's going to break down because there's just not enough people. Just realistically, it's not enough people to keep it supported. Um, so that's my thing. If you're okay with gifting and taking that risk, I say, okay, that's fine. But understand that just the pure nature of the structure of it requires it to continually grow, and it's not sustainable for the long term. Now I have gotten myself slapped around for mentioning that the other day. Um, some people are doing very well with some of the ones that they're in because they have a very tight knit of people who are trying to help each other win, and that's cool. I have no beef with it. I'm just saying, just think about the structure of it. Again, somebody's going to lose out at some point. You just hope it's not you.
Right, right. And that's the thing, with for it to work, there has to be a constant increase in amount of people. It has to get broader because eventually you're going to run out of people that are in your immediate circle. So you're going to start to branch out. When you start to branch out, you have people with more expectations. Also, the money, people are honest for the most part, as long as there's no reason for them to be dishonest. As soon as they reach a issue where kids' tuition has to be paid, oh, I just dip into this a little bit. I'll pay it back. Or I'll pay everybody a little bit less this time, or I'll just bring more people in. And when they pay their money, because it takes a little while before they get all the information and they're really, infused properly, I'll give them, I'll take the money, I'll use it, I'll try to put it back. And then what happens is the theoretically, it's supposed to be where the money is untouched. But people begin to touch it. It begins to move around. People begin to ask for portions of it. People begin to question, is it being invested? Who's holding on to it? What's happening with it? And, emergencies come up. People want to pull their money out. It's not very easy to pull it out, because you pull it out, you're disabling the pyramid, and you now have a gap, and somebody's not going to get their money. So you're fighting to keep everybody invested and involved. It really can ruin friendships, relationships, and your own personal financial structure. So
I will say this about this, the one that I've seen recently, is that nobody really holds on to money. So once you give your money to the person at the top, it's their money. They can do whatever they want to do with it, and then you just have to wait till your time comes up. So it's never really a thing that you can spend it. Once you give that money, it's gone. And if you're okay with gifting that money, and possibly you not getting that 4,000 that they got, maybe getting less, or maybe not getting anything all back, you have to. People don't share that as much. That part of it, there's a possibility that you might not get paid the same amount that the person at the top got paid. So that's a little bit different now. I do understand the concept. I just know because the structure of it, it just can't sustain itself.
Not sustainable. And I have seen someone actually messaged me today. They were having trouble. I got a couple messages about this today because I posted in a group, and I got a couple messages, and one where it was an experience where they were doing it wrong, because remember, if the people who are involved in it don't understand how it works, they're not going to do it correctly. And it was a situation where they were giving the money to this one person who was putting it in the bank, and then the person was then giving it to whomever every week. And what was happening was there were weeks being skipped. There were people not getting the money, the full amount. There was no accountability. There was just not enough information being. So it's also, goes back to the credibility of who's involved in that trust factor that's there.
Yeah.
So how do we transfer wealth? How do we do that? Like, what is that, and how do we do it?
And this is where my there's a lot of things. First of all, again, that same thing where we're talking about putting money aside, 20% aside, or whatever that percentage is, to kind of continue to grow and grow and grow. When you get to the point where you start to use that money, not using all of it, so it allows some to be transferred to your grandkids. But one of the things I love, and sue me for being in insurance, is I love the concept of whole life insurance. Like I love it. I didn't always. So just for me in my personal situation, I have a bunch of term insurance. So if something happens to me, my wife and daughter are fine. But I also figured I need to buy some whole life insurance, so just in case I don't pass away in that by 30, by 40, by 50 or 55 or 65 or whatever that term happens to be. If I live a long, healthy life until I'm age 120, I know that I'm going to have some money going to my next generation. That's why I love the concept of it. And I'm in a situation where you get to be a parent, and a lot of people pass around this concept of being self-insured, and I did it. So a lot of people say I'm going to accumulate enough money so that if something happens to me, my kids and everything are fine, which is I love it. I love that concept. The problem is you don't end up being super wealthy as you get older, as we live longer, as you have medical issues. Your wealth that you've built starts to dwindle. So it becomes almost a curse to live too long. So that's where I like the whole thing of doing that, but having a portion of that into some whole life insurance. There are a lot of different strategies, real estate, buying real estate for your kids, things like that. There's a lot of things you can do to pass on money. But the simple thing is just live below your means, put that disposable income aside to work for you and let it continue to work. That's the simple thing. That's the simple way for to build generational wealth.
Well, there was that just to pull in pop culture, there was that discussion between Cardi B, who gave her daughter the $8,000 Birkin bag, and Serena Williams, who gave her daughter, who named her daughter as part of, a member of a company that she was part of, and others, who have put I believe it was Nas, I forget who it is, put their daughter as an executive producer on an album. And I know with even each one of my books, there's a family member who's part of it, so that they're a listed author, and companies and things that I work for. Like, I just got a major project, and instead of outsourcing it, I called the family members I knew that had the expertise and said, we're going to work on this project together and split the income. So also looking at, there's alternative ways to be able to pass that along. You might not have the cash to do it today, but there are instruments that you can give that child so that in the future it will generate income and generate wealth for them. So making them a part of your business planning and your business process.
Yeah, teach them entrepreneurship. Yeah, teach them how to, while we're all mad at Robert Kiyosaki right now, he did have some good points about the difference between being self-employed and being a business owner.
Right.
You want to create streams of revenue that are not tied directly to your labor. If I'm here asleep and, I got something that's still bringing me money, I'm a business owner. But if I have to go out there and work and trade my hours for dollars, when I stop working, that flow stops. So teaching our kids to be true business owners, being self-employed is fine, but you do want to have those streams of revenue that happen whether you are able to work or not. There's there's some other ways to do it. How you do that, like I said, there's a lot of different ways: franchising, real estate, stocks and investing. There are a whole lot of ways to do it. Just be purposeful about it, and don't be afraid to seek professional help with that stuff.
Right. And make it legal.
Yes.
My son and I talk about my kids, and I do this because I want people to know that I'm doing some of this stuff too. Like you were talking about your stepdaughter, you're doing this stuff too. And I think it's important for them to realize that regular people are doing these things. And with my son, he's been a photographer over the years. And after a certain point, I said, you're starting to make money now. And what are you going to do? So we established his business, and he got his liability insurance, and now he rents an office in my office and turned it into a studio. And now I see half naked girls every day taking pictures everywhere. So so he turned he's 21. He turned every 21-year-old's dream into a business. And he tries to convince me, Mom, I don't even see them like that. I'm like, how can you not? I'm not gay. And I'm looking at them like, what? Really? Whoa, that was in your office today? But making sure that even a hobby is transformed to a business, where now at 21, he is not only in college and is finishing up his junior year in business management, not business management, business administration, but he's also been a business owner for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So he far exceeded me, like already at 21, because his paperwork is in order, and he's making sure that he gets things signed and releases and all of this kind of stuff. So really being there and showing them, like you said, that entrepreneurism is something that's much deeper than just saying I have a side hustle. that there is a structure that needs to go into it. And it's also not meant for everybody.
It's not.
That's that's something, I know we're at our time, but that's something that people get mad at me with too. Not everybody is one that can work for themselves and understand and have the patience and the longevity that it takes to run and maintain a business. It is still respectable to be an intrapreneur if you don't have an entrepreneur. It's okay to have a side hustle, would be somebody that works a full-time job or a CEO of somebody's company or whatever. We shouldn't feel pressured into saying, I have to have a business.
Yeah.
Have a business as a source of building wealth and building and strategic planning and strategic growth, not just to say, I have one. So that's my rant on that.
Yeah. I mean, I think people who work for someone else, you can become an expert at that. You can become invaluable, irreplaceable, and start to make more money that way. But just again, the core, the key to that and building wealth is make sure you take some of that money that you're getting from that and putting it to work for you.
Right.
So at some point, again, you don't have to work for that money anymore. You've maxed out. You've done everything you need to do to make as much money as you can. Now you want to be able to sit and relax the fruit of your labor. So
Right.
I really hope people start investing in whatever it is, whether it's real estate, stocks, or whatever, putting some money to work for you.
Yeah, your money definitely has to work harder than you do, and your money should be working while you're resting.
Exactly.
And that's the key. That's if you find that you're working for every dollar, it should get to the point where you're looking like, oh, I didn't realize that. Well, where did that come from? What just like some other things. But thank you so much, because I was getting ready to go into something else, and I have to say. But thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
I loved it. I loved it. I think you're doing a great thing, Tony.
Thank you. And I'm so
Dr. Tony. Sorry.
well, Toni is fine, but thank you so much. It's this is just about getting some of the information. And it's not that they might not have heard this information before, but sometimes it's good to hear it from people that look like you, that have experienced life the way you've experienced it, and are not unobtainable or unreachable or unapproachable. You're definitely somebody, and I'm going to put up your
You can always find me.
oh wait, there.
I'm always on Facebook, so you can always find me there.
Yeah, so you can get him on Facebook. I throughout the thing here, I put his and it's up there now. His email on the screen. He does a lot for business owners. He does a lot for the community. So similar, I will say to myself, don't assume that just because it's not listed in his title, that is something he's not involved in. When there's few people, I believe, in this world that are unselfishly invested in community growth and awareness of Black excellence, and Barron is one of them. And I'm not one of those people that really does a commercial for anyone, but he's definitely one of the people. So I would trust him with my money if I had any, and I definitely think you should trust him with yours. But when the situation comes, definitely when I reach the next step, which I think I'm approaching soon, Barron is the one that I'm going to go to. So I definitely suggest you do that. And if you have any questions, reach out. Other than that, you can reach me at www.askdrtony.com or on Facebook or declareiammore.com or what have you. But thank you so much for joining us. Glad to see Norm there today. He's on the line. I'm going to reach out to you. I owe you an email, Norm. Your show was amazing today. And also, Dr. Nicole Simpson is on the line. I just did a show with her. I don't know why I'm saying on the line. I don't know. I've been on the phone all day. But she's on. She's been there. I just did a talk with her.
Another great Another great planner. Another great
Yeah,
planner.
she's amazing. And also, Yolanda and Curtis Dortch, they work in the insurance industry, and she's a CPA as well. So we have some amazing people that have been on, and I really do appreciate that. And I will see y'all next time. And thank you so much, Baron. Give your
You're
family.
welcome. I
Bye.
sure will. Thank you.
All right. Bye.